Hello everyone, today I'm going to tell you about chapter number 2, class 10th NCERT book History, Nationalism in India. So today we are going to study about nationalism in India, how the nationalism spread in whole India. This chapter is most important for all our future, and it is also important for the in point of exam view also. So firstly understood about what is nationalism. So nationalism, a feeling of love or pride for our own country. When we are feeling with for our country a very love and proud on our country, then it is called a feeling of nationalism. And every citizen of India have a feeling of nationalism, but how this nationalism feeling will come in our mind or our leaders, and how could it spread from whole the country. So today we study about whole the history about this. So from this is we start from the First World War. This first topic of this chapter is the First World War, Khilafat and non-cooperation. In this chapter we will fully discuss about these all the topics. So what is the impact of First World War on our country India? Let's see that what is the impact of First World War in our country. So the first impact was that it is usually increase in defense expenditure, which was financed by war loans and increasing taxes. In our country India, as we know, if there is a come the war was there, and that's impact India also, because India is also a part of this world, and it is also affected by the First World War. So we can see in this there is some topics that how the India affected by these by the First World War. Okay, so the first of it led to a huge increase in defense expenditure, which was financed by a war loans and increasing taxes. After the First World War, the India is facing by very much in problem of money and all defense expenditure, and which was it was financed by, if their country is facing from any defense expenditure or any expenditure, how could it overcome by war loans and increasing taxes, taking loans from other countries or warriors, and increases taxes. Also custom duties were raised. What is custom duties? Custom duties is a type of a tax which was taken if you go from one border to another border, that tax were taken, that is known as custom duties. It was also introduced, income tax was also introduced. This also, from this war, the year prices increased. Okay, prices is very increased of all the things, like doubling. It's doubling between 1913 and 1918. मान लीजिए अगर कोई for example, if we taken the wheat of 20 rupees, then after war it will be of 40 rupees or 50 rupees, means almost it was increases, means doubling, it doubles. And also lead to extreme hardship for the common people. This is also common. If there is a prices increase prices, the common people face problems. Normal people or high class people are able to survive, but how the common people survive? Middle class people have a problem, and this extreme hardship in the life of the common people. Villages were called upon to soldiers and the forced recruitment in rural areas and caused widespread anger. What is firstly there is a word at forced रिक्रूटमेंट. सो द फोर्स रिक्रूटमेंट जो था वो एक प्रोसेस था जिसमें कि लोगों को फोर्सफुली पीपल्स और टेकन फ्रॉम फोर्सफुली एंड दे आर ज्वाइन टू द आर्मी. मीन्स उनका मन नहीं है आर्मी को ज्वाइन करना, फिर भी अगर हम उन्हें फोर्सफुली अगर उन पर दबाव देते हैं कि आर्मी को ज्वाइन करें, दिस इज कॉल्ड, इट इज़ ऑल्सो टर्म इन आंसर इंक्लूडिंग यू इंक्लूड दिस टर्म like forced recruitment. Okay, on also in 1918 and 1919 and 2021, crops is also failed in many parts of India, resulting in acute shortages. Means there is also a shortage of food, and also accompanied by the one disease, influenza epidemic. During the 1921, 12 to 13 million people were result of a famines and epidemic. All the peoples have feeling extreme hardships by this problems will rises by the First World War. Now here is the idea of satyagraha. There is a subtopic, that idea of satyagraha. So when the Gandhiji returned to India in January, there is also a question one word that when did Gandhiji return to India? This is on January 1915, Gandhiji returned. Firstly, the small idea about satyagraha. So satyagraha was a novel method of mass agitation. The idea of satyagraha emphasized the power of truth and the need to search for truth. It suggested that if the cause was true, if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the oppression. मीन्स जो सत्याग्रह का एक नॉवल मेथड था मास एजिटेशन का, जिसको कि हम लोग सत्याग्रह कहते हैं, जो महात्मा गांधी के थ्रू अनाउंस हुआ था. और ये ऐसा एक पावर था कि जिससे कि हम लोग तुथ के लिए लड़ रहे हैं और हमारी ज़रूरत क्या है, तुथ को ढूंढना, तुथ को सर्च करना। और ये सजेस्ट क्या करता था कि अगर आपका कॉज ट्रूथ है, अगर हम सही हैं तो हमें कभी भी स्ट्रगल करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है इनजस्टिस, मतलब खिलाफ किसी भी चीज़ के खिलाफ अगर हम सही हैं तो हमें उसको फोर्सफुली करने की या वायलेंस करने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है। हम अपने फिजिकल फोर्स की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है अपने ऑपरेशन के साथ लड़ने की, मतलब अपने अपोजिशन से लड़ने के लिए हमें फिजिकल फोर्स की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है। अगर हम सत्याग्रह हैं, अगर हम लोग ट्रुथ को फॉलो करते हैं तो हमें किसी भी इनजस्टिस लॉ के खिलाफ हमें फिजिकल फोर्स की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। Also here, in 1917, Gandhiji traveled to Champaran in Bihar. And why? What was the purpose? To inspire the peasant to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. And in 1917, he supported the peasant of Kheda district of Gujarat. And in 1918, Mahatma Gandhi went to Ahmedabad to organize the Satyagraha movement against cotton mill and workers. Now the Rowlatt Act. What is Rowlatt Act? Here we see the Rowlatt Act. So the Rowlatt Act was passed by the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members, and also it gives enormous power to repress political parties, ओके, एंड अलाउड डिटेंशन ऑफ पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर विदाउट ट्रायल फॉर 2 years। ये लॉ ऐसा एक्ट था जो कि इम्पेरियल लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल के थ्रू पास हुआ था 1919 में, और ये करता था कि अगर कोई भी जो पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स हैं वो पॉलिटिकल एक्टिविटीज़ अगर परफॉर्म करते हैं तो उनको वो लोग जेल में रख सकते हैं बिना ट्रायल के 2 साल के, मतलब उन्हें किसी भी कोर्ट में नहीं पेश किया जाएगा, 2 साल तक उन्हें जेल में ही रखा जाएगा। दिस इज़ And for this Mahatma Gandhi wanted non-violent civil disobedience against such unjust law, which was started with a hartal. And the civil disobedience movement was started with the small hartal, that is on 6 April. By this, rallies were organized in cities and also called Alam. And in Amritsar, same on 10 April, the police in Amritsar fired upon a peaceful procession, and widespread attacks on banks, post offices, railway, and martial law was also imposed. Firstly, what is martial law? So martial law is a law in which law the government, the all power came to the army. Army will took the power to, and this law is imposed, and the head was General Dyer take command of this. And on 13 April, on 13 April, the infamous Jallianwala Bagh incident took place. On that day, a large crowd gathered in enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh. Some came to protest against the government new repressive measures. Others had came to attend the annual Baisakhi fair. Here, this is a small is a place where the people are come to enjoy the fair. Some are not able to know that there is a martial law imposed, but also the innocent peoples were killed. I think many more people killed on hundreds people's kills. Many means all people's going to be die and injured by this all incident. And this is object of this declared this Jallianwala Bagh incident to produce a moral effect, to create a mind of satyagraha is a feeling of terror, मीन्स खौफ पैदा करना लोगों के अंदर कि ब्रिटिशर्स का क्या खौफ है, इसलिए उन्होंने इतना बड़ा इंसिडेंट प्लेस किया जलियांवाला बाग इंसिडेंट। एंड जैसे ये न्यूज़ पूरे जगह फैली, क्राउड्स स्प्रेड आउट इन होल दिस, all the people's clashes, strikes were organized, and the government buildings were repressed. Satyagrahi was forced to rub their noses on the ground, crawl on street, मतलब हर तरीके से बहुत ज़्यादा टॉर्चर किया गया लोगों को। तो महात्मा गांधी ने परेशान होकर इस मूवमेंट को कॉल्ड ऑफ कर दिया। नाउ अब क्या किया महात्मा गांधी को, एक इशू मिला, खिलाफत इशू, जो कि ये फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर जब एंड हुआ था, ओटोमन टर्की डिफीट हुआ था, और उसमें एक रूमर, देयर वाज अ रूमर दैट harsh peace treaty was going to be imposed on the Ottoman Empire, and the spiritual head of Islamic world, that is the Khalifa, to defend the Khalifa temporal powers. A Khilafat committee was formed in Bombay in March 1919, and the young generation Muslim leaders like the brothers are Muslim Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali with the Mahatma Gandhi. And also at the Calcutta session of Congress in September 19, he convinced to leaders to start a non-cooperation movement in support of Khilafat as well as for Swaraj. So now see why non-cooperation. So non-cooperation is a movement which was also declared by Mahatma Gandhi in his famous book Hind Swaraj, that is 1909. It was published in 1909, and Mahatma Gandhi said that in this book that not the cooperation of Indians and had survived only because of his cooperation. He believed that the Britishers are survived only with the cooperation of Indian. If the Indians refused to cooperate, British rule in India would collapse within a fear, and Swaraj would came. Now he used to boycott all the civil services, court and legislative council, school and foreign goods. In this case, a full civil disobedience movement campaign would be launched. And 1920, in summer of 1920, Mahatma Gandhi and Shaukat Ali extensively mobilizing popular support for the movement. And also, the Congress session at Nagpur in December 1920, the non-cooperation program was adopted. Okay, now let's see the next topic, that is differing stands within the movements. Now, the non-cooperation Khilafat movement was began in January 1921, and this is also a very important stand by the stand movement. Now, what is the movement in the towns? So the movement in towns, the thousands of students left government controlled schools as there is this non-cooperation. They are not cooperating Britishers, as the headmasters and teachers resigned. Lawyers gave up their legal practices. The council election were boycotted in most provinces except Madras. Why the Madras? Where the Justice Party, the party of the non-Brahmins, felt that entering the council was one of way of gaining some power, something that usually only Brahmins had access to. Okay, now the effects of non-cooperation as the some dramatic form, that foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops picketed, and foreign cloth burned in huge bonfires. The for import of foreign cloth halved between 1921 and 92, its value dropping from rupees 102 to rupees 57 crore, and many places merchants and traders refused to trade in foreign goods or finance trade. Now the khadi was often more expensive than mass produced milk cloth and poor people could not afford to buy it. अब क्या हुआ कि जो लोगों थे कॉपरेट करना तो छोड़ दिए थे, लेकिन खादी जो था बहुत ज़्यादा नॉर्मल पीपल अफोर्ड नहीं कर पा रहे थे. दैट्स वाई दे what to do, not for long time they avoid the British's milk clothes, and they have to follow that things. So the students and teachers began trickling back to government schools, and lawyers joined back working government courts. Now in countryside, how the countryside played the important role in that movement. So in Awadh, the peasants were led by, means peasants head was Baba Ramchand, a sannyasi जो कि पहले फिजी के इंडेंचर लेबरर थे. The movement was against Talukdas and landlords who demanded from peasants high rents and variety of other cesses, means other types of taxes also they wanted. Peasants had also do to begar and work at landlords' farm without any payment. This is a very bad thing, that begar, what is begar? So laborers that villages were forced to contribute without any payment. They have to work for them, but they have not paid for that, for their work. There's we could call that as gulami and all. They have to do. They had to do. Okay, now the demanded what were demanded of that to demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and social boycott and oppressive land laws. That's why they also organized Nai Dhobi Bandh were organized by panchayats to deprive landlords of the services of even farmers and washermen. Now, like this only, this was the system were organized by normal people, peasants to repress the landlords, oppressive landlords. In June 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru going around villages in Awadh talking to villagers and try to understand their problems. And by October, the Awadh Kisan Sabha was set up by Jawaharlal Nehru and Baba Ramchand and a few others. Within a month, 300 branches were also established. Like this, the Congress also was want to support them, but they are not like the unhappy because the movements were stabbed and merchants were attacked. Bazaars were looted and grain hoards were taken over in many places. Local leaders told peasant that Gandhiji had declared that no taxes were to be paid. Means there is some rumor also spread in the mind of some people that the Gandhiji said that, and that this thing's not liked by the Congress. Okay, now the what the tribals are facing, the message of, they also know another idea of Swaraj, that they have for them, for peasants, that there is a Swaraj for that, the abolition of revenues, abolition of begar and all. And here the for tribal peasants, the what is the Swaraj for the preventing people from entering the forest to graze their cattle or to collect fuel woods and fruits. The enlarged, and also here the begar you have to do. Alluri Sitaraman claimed as a astrological prediction, and he also believed that he healed people and could even survive with bullet shots also. Here is some myth also here given that. And he is the incarnation of God, means he is the follower of God, like this only, is a part of a God. He had declared that. And he was inspired by the non-cooperation movement, and he also allowed people to, said to people to wear khadi and give up drinking, like all alcohol, liquor shops, all those things they have to avoid the people's. And he also suggests people to do this. But Raju was also captured and executed in 1924, and but he became a folk hero at that time. Now the Swaraj in, here we study about, yes, here we have study about, sorry for this, yes, here Swaraj in the plantations. Let's see. How the Swaraj for plantation workers. So workers to had their own understanding of Mahatma Gandhi and nation of Swaraj. Means अलग अलग people के अलग अलग thoughts थे. They believe that another meaning of Swaraj for all the peoples. Not the same understanding of some people thinking about the Swaraj means to abolish begar system or revenue system, and some people thinking about that the Swaraj is the meaning of what meaning of preventing people from entering the forest. And for the plantation workers, the let's see what are the problems for and what are the meaning of Swaraj for them. So for plantation workers in Assam, freedom mean to right to move freely in and out of the confined space in which they are enclosed, and it meant retaining a link with the village from which they had come. And under the Immigration Act of 1859, plantation workers are not permitted tea gardens without permission. In fact, they are very laced in such permission. And they believe that the Gandhi Raj was come and everyone should be given land in their own villages. ये लोगों की सब कुछ ये लोग मानते थे ऐसा कुछ सब. Let's see towards civil disobedience. So, in February 2022, the non-cooperation movement has also withdrawn, and here is by the government of Act 1919. Here is also established that the C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru formed the Swaraj Party, and the younger leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose has made their another government. And for this, the debate also been there. The effect of worldwide economic depression was the agriculture prices began to fall from 1926 and collapsed after 1930. And also the people, the another background changes like the government constituted a statutory commission under Sir Simon German set up in response to the nationalist government, and it was arrived in India in 1928. And the Indian slogan greeted as a slogan like "Go back, Simon." All parties, including the Congress, Muslim League, participated in the demonstration, and the Viceroy Irwin announced in October 19 a vague offer of dominion status for India in an unspecified future and a roundtable conference to discuss a future constitution. The radicals within the countries led by Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose have become more assertive. They're not helping the Viceroy Irwin. And in December 1929, the Lahore session formalized the demand of Purna Swaraj and or full independence for India. On 26 January 1930, it would be celebrated as an Independence Day. And there is also a question asked that when was the first celebrated as a Independence Day to set, that is 26 January 1930. Okay. For now, see the Salt March. Salt March also on 13 January 1930. Viceroy Irwin, Mahatma Gandhi sent a letter to demanding 11 demands to Viceroy Irwin. Some of those were general interest, specific demands of different classes from industrialists to peasants. The tax on salt to government monopoly over its production, Mahatma Gandhi declared revolted the most oppressive phase of British rule. Means the Gandhiji believed that the salt is a thing that will be used by whether they are rich or whether they are poor. So that's why Gandhiji take a issue of salt. Like on 11 March, the letter stated, and he tell that he had to reply. And also Mahatma Gandhi started the civil disobedience campaign. Mahatma Gandhi started his famous salt march campaign by 78 of his trusted volunteers. The march was over 240 miles from Gandhi Ashram in Sabarmati to the Gujarat coastal town of Dandi, and the volunteers walked continuously for 24 days, about 10 miles a day. And on 6 April, he reached Dandi and ceremonially violated the manufacturing salt by boiling seawater, and they also abolishing that things also. And so as the movement spread, foreign clothes was boycotted, the liquor shops were picketed, and also the revenue and chowkidari taxes were also abolished. Let's see how the participants saw the movement like this. So here the countryside like the Patidas of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh were active in this movement. Being producer of commercial crops, they were hard hit by the trade depression of falling prices. And this it was a struggle. Swaraj was a struggle for against high revenues. For them, the struggle against high revenues is a Swaraj. He meant that. Like this, only the small peasants believed that the due rents were abolished. Swaraj means for them as this. And for the big businessman and industrialists believed that the Swaraj means to all colonial restrictions were not followed by them. And also in the two main leaders of that were the Purushottam Thakur Das and G.D. Birla, industrialist, attacked colonial control over the Indian economy and supported the civil disobedience movements when it was first launched. And also some federation also formed as the Indian Industrialists and Commercial Congress in 1920, and the Federation of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries, that is FICI, in 1927. And also they believed that the all colonial restrictions were not followed by them, prolonged disruptions of businessmen. Also, for the industrialist, this businessmen, for this, that all colonial restrictions were not followed, and for the industries, they believed that civil disobedience movements in large number, as it the civil disobedience movement believed that the workers working conditions were, for the workers, that the working conditions was low, became low, and poor working condition where they were facing. That's why they wanted to want the high wages and some improvement in the working conditions. And also dock workers in 1932, like workers who lived where near sea. In 1930s, thousands of workers in Chota Nagpur 18 miles were Gandhi caps and participated in protest rallies and boycott campaigns. But the Congress was reluctant to include workers because they felt that if they alienate industrialists, they have not got the support of some money and all. So for this, now see the limits of the civil disobedience movement. What are the limits of civil disobedience movement? So the not all the social groups were moved by the abstract concept. For another people, all people have a different concept of Swaraj. And on such group was the nations of untouchables who formed around the 1930s and began to call them Dalits or oppressed. They were depressed, totally depressed. That's why Congress ignored the Dalits for the fear of offending the Sanatanis. But conservative high-class Hindus, but Mahatma Gandhi declared that Swaraj would not come for 100 years if untouchability was eliminated. अगर अनटचेबिलिटी को एलिमिनेट नहीं करते हैं तो स्वराज नहीं आएगा. दैट्स वाई दे डिक्लेयर दैट द हरिजन्स और द चिल्ड्रन ऑफ गॉड organized satyagraha to secure them. Also they support with the Mahatma Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar here announced that the two formed the another demanding a separate electorates for Dalits, but the Mahatma Gandhi had against that. This is how Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, who organized the Dalits into Depressed Classes Association in 1930, and by this there is some clash between Gandhiji and Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, and that's why. But when the British government conceded the Ambedkar demand, Gandhiji began to fast onto that means on strike. He believed that separate electorates for Dalits would slow down the process of the integration into society. Ambedkar ultimately accepted Gandhiji, and this was a result of Pune Pact of September 1932. It was between the Gandhiji and Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. It reserved seats in provincial and central legislative, but they were to be voted for the general electorate. Now the some problem arises that some of the Muslim political organization in India were also lukewarm were the response to civil disobedience movement after the decline of non-cooperation Khilafat movement. A large section of Muslims felt alienated from the Congress. Mid 1920s, the Congress came to be more visibly associated with open Hindu religious nationalist groups like the Hindu Mahasabha. Also, the Hindu also feel that the Muslims feel that they were alienated by the Congress. So the Congress and the Muslim League made efforts to renegotiate an alliance, and in 1927. Here's the problem arises that how many seats for Muslim and Hindus were there. Also difference, there is a one of the leader Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the leaders of Muslim League demand for another separate, but this is not sure about it because this create an alienations between the Hindus, Muslims, and this also separate the peoples. That's why they are not going to